Good morning and welcome to the September 19, 2023 City Commission Work Session. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Jen, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a quick point of order or issue that I'd like to bring up. The mayor is obviously not sitting up here. She is attending to a task that's associated with the TDC, that's the Tourist Development Council. So she may be coming in later as we progress, but meanwhile, just in case she doesn't, and so that I don't forget, could I have a motion to excuse her should she not show?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. Thank you. We come to a great part of our day today, and that's the presentation, and it's a great subject matter. Nicole DeFino and Elizabeth Bricklow, I'd like to have you come up, if you would, and provide the not only the introduction, but the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, staff. Thanks so much for having us here today. I'm here on behalf of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee and my co-curator, Mary Childs. I'm Elizabeth Brinklow. I'm the arts consultant with the City of Dunedin and also a co-curator of the art gallery in your City Hall chamber. Theologian Thomas Merton wrote, "Art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time." This quote speaks to art's capacity to find both self-reflection and transcendence. And we find that in the work of Dia Al-Khali, whose work has inaugurated the City Hall Chamber Gallery. There's a lot to say about Dia Al-Khali. Her show, Luminosity, is on exhibition until the end of 2023, the first week of January 2024. That's the easy part to share. She is a 40-year professional painter and arts advocate. She was a certified instructor and demonstration artist for major art manufacturers, including Crayola Crayons, Winsor & Newton, and Daler-Rowney. Past president and artist in residence of the Center for Contemporary Arts of Abilene. She served on the City of St. Petersburg's Arts Advisory Committee and the Mayor's Transition Team for Arts and Culture for the City of St. Petersburg. She was a co-founder of the St. Petersburg Arts Alliance and the 2020 awardee of the Muse Visual Arts Award. It's a prestigious award for the City of St. Petersburg, and especially for the world of the arts community in St. Pete. On behalf of Mary Childs and myself, she became a registered U.S. State Department Art and Embassy artist whose artwork was sent to San Salvador. And we got it back, by the way. She's represented in St. Petersburg by the Woodfield Fine Art Gallery. And her work is also collected internationally. So a little bit about her, about the way that she works. She's an organic expressionist. And when you think about that, what does that mean? She finds inspiration in stones, shells, the movement of air, and in the shadows as they play across the ground. Yael explores transcendence and inner journeys. Her work is experimental. It searches for that perfect, pure color, the exact line, the precise curve, stroke, or movement of the brush. She makes no preliminary drawings, preferring to work in the moment, allowing the light and emotion to direct her. Working in oil through layer upon layer of thin glazes, sometimes 150 layers to get the kind of depth that you're seeing in the work. With strong color and bold gestures, she seeks to maintain the organic flow as it is seen in nature. So what does she want from her work? She wants to stand across the room and see truth staring back. There will be an artist talk and reception for Yael and for the 9 artists whose work is on exhibition in City Hall. Those are permanent artworks in the public art collection, as well as the work of Christopher Still, whose acoustic screen, it's a reproduction of one of his works, which appears in very large form in City Hall lobby. That's on October 25th from 6 to 8, and there will be refreshments. So we hope people come out and enjoy the work. We'll have an artist talk. We'll share some inspiration about their work, and then there'll be tours throughout City Hall where the artwork appears and further conversation in those spaces. At this time, I'd like to introduce Yael Kelly.
Thank you all for having me here today. Thank you for allowing me to be the inaugural artist in this wonderful space. I appreciate so much what the city of Dunedin has done and how it has evolved. And when I look back at growing up here, and I left for 26 years, lived all over the world, and was lucky enough to come home in 2005. Dunedin and St. Petersburg were always, to me, the 2 hubs of art, the 2 places you went and you had the feel of history here, and you felt very much like it was home when I came home. I've spent a lot of time in Dunedin, as well as my home city of St. Petersburg. It means a lot for me to be able to come home as an artist. I announced to my family that I was going to be an artist when I was 5. I don't know what I thought at 5 an artist was going to be supposed to be doing, but to be an artist in my hometown, in my home peninsula, in my home state is so meaningful. And I'd like to thank you all so much for supporting the arts. It is so important. As artists, we're so often vagabonds who go from one place to another, city to city. We oftentimes come in when times are hard. We go into difficult economic situations. We go into places where rent is cheap and oftentimes dangerous. And when rent goes up and there's development, so oftentimes artists are forgotten and they get pushed out and pushed on. I see here in Dunedin an actual plan to make a sustainable situation for artists, to invite artists in to make your city beautiful, but then to invite artists to stay and make it their home. And more than anything else, what I want to say to you all is thank you for that opportunity, for giving us a home to stay in, not a home that we're just moving through. And thank you all. You make that possible.
Wow.
Are there any questions for Yael or statements?
Please.
Yeah. First of all, thank you. I've heard it said that we have public art in our... Thank you for the reminder. I've heard it said that we don't have actually public art in our City Hall, but that City Hall is in a museum. And so thank you for that reflection upon our city. I'm gratefully appreciative of that kind of feeling from our residents. You mentioned in your bio that you make no preliminary drawings. As a self-described non-artist, I have no idea how you get to where you are. Can you describe just your thought process in creating what you create?
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that. I was actually classically trained and started life as a portrait artist, and I got my education in England. As I've evolved over the years, doing this 40 plus years, I'm going to be 63 this year, what I've done is I've sought to evolve myself. And so I started out doing portraits, and I evolved through many, many phases. I got to a point in my life where I had to walk away from painting for a while. I was running a theater, and although I was doing scenic painting, I wasn't getting to do easel painting. When I got to return, I looked at it as a complete gift, and what I wanted to be able to do was bring something absolutely new to the public realm. I didn't want to paint if I was just painting. There are so many fantastic portrait artists, so many wonderful landscape artists, and I wanted to bring something new. And so what I did was I took everything that I'd learned and said, I have learned these lessons, and now I'm going to throw them out the window and paint like a crazy person, paint like you should never paint, which is instead of starting out with an understood composition, I would allow myself every day to come into the studio and to paint how I felt, to draw upon stories from my own cultural background, to think about, my grandmother was a storyteller, so I had all these wonderful stories that made me feel a certain way. I would look sometimes at the shadows on the floor, or pick up a stone, or pick up a shell on the beach, and it would take me to the story of my childhood. And I thought, I am just going to paint that pure emotion. I'm going to embrace this idea that it could change every moment. Sometimes I'd go in, I'd paint all day long, and I'd go, I have no idea where this is going. Oftentimes I would share it with other artists. They'd say, how are you doing? What are you working on? And I'd say, we're not talking right now. I've turned that to the wall. Hopefully we'll speak tomorrow. It's getting to a scary place. I think probably you all know what it's like to want to do something in the city. Like painting, like this incredible new city hall that you created. I'm sure many times it took many turns in different directions. You had no idea where it was going to go. You had no idea where you were going to complete it, perhaps. And then when you saw it come to fruition, it was like this amazing gift. And I always tell people, I look at my art like I look at every new day. I have no idea where it's going. I have to trust in the process. And it's never let me down, but it sure is scary getting there. And that's a good feeling. Probably a long roundabout answer.
No, it was the perfect length. Thank you very much.
Great question and comment. Anybody else?
This question is probably more for Elizabeth. Will there ever be an art piece like in the very back? Only because for the commission, if you're going to get lost in a piece of art, you're usually not going to be looking here, you're going to be looking there. And once in a while, my colleagues go off a little bit, and I like to get lost a little bit, but...
Well, perhaps the gallery can then
just a question to think about.
Add another.
Yeah, just, in the old City Hall, we had them.
We'll just continue the
Yeah,
gallery.
we had them a little
around.
more, if I get lost, I got to get lost in the mayor's back there, and that's just not that exciting. I'd rather get lost in the artist's work, so, anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, but great, thank you so much for all you do, and we love our artists.
Thank you all.
Rob?
We most certainly do love our artists, and I have to say, I almost wish we could devote the whole workshop today to this discussion because this is just inspiring. We are extremely fortunate here in Dunedin that you're sharing our work, sharing your talent, and sharing your passion for this. This is, I'm absolutely intrigued. I've never heard of organic expressionism, but I think that kind of captures some of the talent and the passion that you bring to this. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to make a quick comment about Dunedin and the word art. Our Fine Arts Center is always at the top of our minds. I know Elizabeth is our go-to person when it comes to art, and the fact of so many artists such as yourself have participated in the city, and just to know that is very refreshing. And I really like that question from Jeff here about how you did that, and that's remarkable. I had no idea someone would do something like that. That's talk about creative. and the husband behind her is going, Thank you very much, Ms. Cowan.
Can I say one last thing? I'm sorry. up here spur of the moment. I want to also say my heartfelt thanks to Elizabeth Brinklow and Mary Childs. Elizabeth and I go back a long way in working together. She has inspired an entire city south of you, as well as inspiring this great city. Her work is stellar, and the opportunity that she has brought to so many artists like myself, she's such an asset to the community, and I just wanted to say I'm sorry I didn't mean to not thank you, my dear, but what you do, incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. We come now to the time of citizen input. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on a topic that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to our consent agenda. We have a large consent agenda, which includes approval of the minutes for 7/18 budget workshop, boards and committee appointments for both the Architectural Review Committee and the Code Enforcement Board, a change order for the new City Hall, agreement between Pinellas County and the City of Dunedin to approve emergency medical services, review and recommended multimodal improvements to Beltrees Street, Department of State Division of Historical Resources small matching grant agreement for citywide historical resources, and lastly, third-party administrative services for property, casualty, and workers' comp claims. I read all of that because I want to first ask for a motion, but before, I want to make sure that if anyone wants anything pulled, we should do that.
I'd like to pull 2D.
2D, is there anything?
2D, D.
2D.
D.
Anything else? No, sir. All right, so excluding 2D, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, less 2D?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any public input on any one of these items? Seeing none and hearing none, can I have a voice vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. We're at action items, and we have resolution.
We have the item I pulled off of
Oh, I'm
consent.
sorry, thank you
That's
very
okay.
much.
Yep.
All right, so 2D. Did you want a presentation or ask questions, specific
No, I
questions?
just can ask a specific question. Jorge, you know, we've kept the City Hall right on budget, so when I saw this, I just wanted to make sure, for the public more so, that there's an understanding of what this extra money is, because it's over the original budget, and it's my understanding a lot of it is just being smart. We're going to dig up a road, so if we're going to do a pipe next year, let's do it this year. So we need to, so can you kind of, and maybe some of it is not that, but could you be clear about what this is?
Yes. Good morning, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Jorge Quintas, Deputy City Manager. Yes, Commissioner, this change order is specific to additional work that the city requested while we were under construction. The contract was originally awarded on March 31st of 21 was the project as bid, as designed, and then following in July, we added a amendment to the contract, which included $750,000 in contingency dollars that were in the approved budget, but needed to be added to the contract itself so there'd be a mechanism to allow for any unforeseen conditions during construction. We did that throughout the course of construction. We also, if you'll look in the packet, there were sequential purchase order adjustments that were done for what's called ODP, owner direct purchases, which is you're utilizing the bid pricing that was in the contract that the contractor had either themselves or through their subcontractors or vendors, that allows the city to basically deduct those items from the contract, but utilize that pricing and then purchase it to realize tax savings that the contractor wouldn't otherwise realize. So because we are tax exempt, we could make purchases for large items, say the generator, air conditioning units, concrete, rebar, anything that was actually required to be purchased in order to construct the building. we could do deductive change orders, and you'll see that in the packet. You know, we took a $20 million contract, and it's down to like $16 million because we pulled those items out, purchased it, and then realized those tax savings. So throughout the course of construction, we addressed any items that came up that were unforeseen, and consumed that $750,000, which for a $20 million project, that's a pretty small contingency line item. And then we also realized the tax savings for those things that we purchased and pulled out of the contract. These items, as you indicated, are for additional work that we did. You mentioned, as we were going through construction, there was a force main project, a 12-inch force main project that was running along Loudoun and down Virginia. So we advanced that work. Obviously, that caused disruption to the road. Originally, the project did not include repaving Loudoun Avenue or Virginia. The plan was to do that in a future year paving contract. We didn't see the benefit in doing so, having advanced the force main construction. That obviously caused disruption to the roadway. It would have looked like a zipper cut roadway when we were done. Here you have a brand new building, a brand new parking lot, and you've got a roadway that doesn't look brand new. So we ended up advancing pavement preservation dollars that we would have utilized anyway to do paving in a future year, and we did that concurrent with the project. So that was a big chunk of this change order, was advancing that. We also had the contractor do multiple mobilizations throughout construction, which when they bid the project, they assumed that they were going to do all the paving at once. We asked them to sequence that over 4 different cycles to minimize the impact to the residents and the businesses so that we wouldn't impact the entire 2-block area at the same time. So we did that. When they came in to pave Loudoun Avenue, we found, I guess at some point in time, it used to be a brick road and there was just sand underneath the pavement that had been removed. So we had to do a change order to add what's called full depth asphalt there. When we got to the corner of Loudoun and Wood, we encountered a similar situation. Some of it was brick, some of it was nothing but sand. So we had to do a change order to advance that intersection improvement. We utilized some of the bricks that were removed. If you recall, on Wood Street, on the north side of Wood Street, there used to be some angled parking that were historic bricks. So we utilized those historic bricks to create 3 crosswalks on Loudoun that, again, were not part of the original contract, to create historic brick crosswalks on Loudoun. We added some ADA ramps on the parking lot. As you recall, we had some conversations during construction that the original design had pedestrians exiting the parking lot at either the driveway on Highland or the driveway on Loudoun, but it didn't provide for pedestrian ingress and egress points from the parking lot onto the side streets. So we added those. And lastly, we have the undergrounding that's associated on Virginia. When we did the agreement with Duke and the other utilities to underground the overhead power lines, cable providers and the such on Loudoun and Virginia, it then had a subsequent requirement to underground 2 residential and 1 commercial business along Virginia that have overhead feeds. So that cost is in this change order. So these are all things that were done in excess of the original contract, but in order to minimize the impact to residents so that we didn't finish the building and then turn around 6 months later and impact them again by starting construction again.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to, I think it's important because we've bragged about, we've stuck to our budget with the City Hall, and I think it's really important. And these were just kind of either smart thing to do because we're going to tear up the road later, or smart thing to do because outside of this building, we're adding better access. So I think, it's important the public understand that. They're not overages to the actual City Hall.
No, it's additional work we would have done otherwise.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No.
Thank you very much. Anyone in any citizen input at this point? Thank you. Can I have a motion for 2D then, the change order?
So moved.
Second.
Who first that?
Who was first? I was second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. Whoa, here we go, action items. Resolution 2323. Jennifer, would you please read that resolution 2323 by title only?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Resolution 2323, a resolution of the City of Dunedin, Florida, relating to the State Revolving Loan Fund Program, making findings, authorizing the loan agreement, establishing pledged revenues, designating authorized representatives, providing assurances, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date. That was Resolution 2323, read by title only.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Rob, thank you. Staff presentation. Ms. City Manager, would you like to start?
Certainly, Vice Mayor, thank you. And this is an item that's a long time coming to the City Commission, and I'm going to turn it over to Nan. I have nothing besides that.
Okay. Good morning, Vice Mayor and Commission. Nan Bennett, Utilities and Engineering Director. So this project predates my involvement with the city. It goes back even further than the background here. 2015, actually, the city prepared a water and sewer master plan that identified a number of improvements that needed to be made in our aging water and sewer systems, specifically a number of electrical updates to the wastewater treatment plants, a replacement of our supervisory control and data acquisition systems, a little bit of improvements to some of our processes, such as the chlorine contact chamber, and then some collection system improvements. And so based upon that master plan, in 2019, the city realized that a funding mechanism that they would choose to pursue for this would be state revolving loan funds. And so in 2019, the city contracted for loan administration and compliance services to pursue that type of funding and those funds. So they contracted with Woodard and Curran, and then again, there were a number of resolutions along the way. In 2020, they went to state SRF and got the money to do the planning or the design portion of these projects with resolution, let's see, the application was resolution 2009, and then the funding was application or resolution 2032 to adopt the facilities plan, which is basically telling the state how we intend to spend the money and what we're going to do with it. And then further on in June of 2021, Resolution 2117 was approved by the Commission, authorizing a loan application to do these various wastewater improvement projects. Then after the application in September 2021, Resolution 2125 was approved by the Commission to authorize execution of a loan agreement. In April 2022, we began actually doing some of these projects. It's a long process between the planning, the design, getting the funding in place. But in 2022, the Commission awarded a contract for $4.3+ million to upgrade the citywide lift station control panel replacement and the lift station supervisory controls and data acquisition. Simultaneously, we were also pursuing some of the other improvements, the electrical upgrades, and having those designed and bid. And they have been bid twice. Once packaged together with the electrical and the SCADA together, and the bids came in higher than expected. So then we decided, well, maybe if we separated them, and they were separated, and the electrical came in higher yet. So in this time post-COVID, for whatever reason, it appears that electrical work is the one thing that isn't recovering as quick as other types of construction work. The lead times on electrical equipment are very long. And so we realized that we didn't have enough funding to do the electrical work, which is really the biggest thing that we need to get done at the wastewater treatment plant. The plant was built in the early 90s, opened in like 91, 92, and that electrical system is obsolete. We can't buy parts easily. We have to look for things that are no longer supported, and we need to upgrade the entire electrical system. And so we turned to Woodard and Curran and asked them to go back to the state and ask them, was there any additional funding? And I believe it was last month, it feels like it was last month, August, Resolution 2319 I brought to you and asked to authorize to apply for an additional $7.65 million for a total amount of this state revolving loan fund of $23.2 million. So this now is the resolution that accepts, you authorize to apply for the loan. This is the resolution that allows for us to make the loan agreement. And it has been approved by the city attorney as to form, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Let me start down here. Rob, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I guess more clarifying, because these types of things have come before the commission in the past. The state revolving fund is essentially a low-interest loan that provides exactly what we're using the money for, infrastructure, and to essentially make our electrical system whole, I guess.
Totally renew it.
Yeah, no, that's I did some research on the program and the process, and I really think it's very beneficial to municipalities to have the ability to do this, and so I applaud the effort. So thank you.
Thank you, Mo.
What is the interest rate?
This was between 1% and 3%, but the other point is we don't pay until construction is complete, and then we start making reimbursement payments, so it's an additional benefit.
Yeah, so it's yeah. And I know it's way good for us, so it's a good thing. So, okay, that was my only clarifying.
I'm sorry, I should have known that.
No, it's okay. I should have known it too, but because we've heard it a lot, so.
And it may well be in this packet.
Yeah. Probably is.
But I can't find it really fast. And I don't see the finance director.
Commissioner Cow.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, and just to Commissioner Freeney's point, that we don't start paying on those, or to Jorge's point, that we don't start paying on that until the construction is complete. But those funds are allocated, are they invested? So are we earning interest on that money during the time of construction?
No, we don't start bearing interest, and we don't start earning, it's state money, and they've got it invested. That's why it's called a revolving loan in other loans.
Right, okay.
So no.
All right, thank you.
I have nothing further from a question standpoint. Can I open this for a public hearing? Anyone in the public wish to address this topic? I'll close the public hearing, seeing and hearing none. Commission comments. Any comments from anyone?
Yeah, I was making a motion. So, yeah, the only thing I'm very grateful that this program is here. Obviously makes it much more affordable for the city to do this. I'll repeat something I say all the time in ad nauseum is, I was here in the 90s when we were in crisis with water. We were in crisis with wastewater. We built the new plants, and it was an absolute crisis. So we never want to be back there. We want to make sure we're being responsible and keeping things up the way they should be, and so I fully support this.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, the only real comment I'll make is just to acknowledge the price tag on it. This is something we certainly need to do, and I'm in support of it, but it's a high price tag when we're in an environment of sea level rise and climate change, and the threat of hurricanes that could wipe all this money out in a matter of hours. So I just want to keep it in the front of everybody's mind that those threats are real and they're out there. Thank you.
I appreciate all the comments and support them. They're all concerned, and we're all, it sounds to me like we're going to be voting in favor of this. So could I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Gao,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
All right.
Commissioner Franey,
Aye.
and Vice Mayor Torringa.
Aye, and that Passes unanimously. Thank you. We next have a starred item. This is for the authorization of the execution of change order number 1 with Woodward and Curran for a fee increase of $364,000 and a time extension to request for proposal 191139. Can I ask for a motion to place this on the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And a voice vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Again, City Manager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And actually, the only reason why this is a starred item on your agenda today is because when you approved the agenda 2 weeks ago, it was actually on consent. But since these two items are very much interrelated, we put it on as an action item for all of you, but it directly relates to the previous item that you just approved.
Would you like me to speak to this?
Yes.
Okay. Again, Nan Bennett, Director of Utilities and Engineering. I'm going to spare you the history of the previous project. They're very directly interrelated. As I said, one of the first steps we did when we decided to pursue SRF, state revolving loan funds, we got the services of a consultant for the administration and compliance of those state revolving loans. As you can hear from the process, it's a complicated process. The state wants to ensure that the money is being spent properly and well because it is a very beneficial program because of the low interest. So back in November 19, we went under contract with Woodward and Curran. And at that time that we advertised the RFQ number 19-1139, we proposed that we would be doing $12 million worth of work and that the work would be done consecutively and relatively quickly. Well, now we're in 2023, 4 years later, and we're still looking at another 3+, closer to 4 years to finish this work by the time we award it and we get it constructed and they're able to close out the loan. So obviously that continues to accrue cost if they're administering these loans. And so Woodward and Curran has come back to us and asked us for additional funding because this project, they have done a number of additional loan applications for us than that was initially anticipated. And the project is continuing on for an additional 40 months. And so this request is for an additional $364,000 for those administrative fees. The administrative fees are within the allowable administrative fees by the state revolving loan funds and will be financed out of that money that we're getting on the state revolving loan funds. And the city attorney, I don't believe, has seen this change order prior. It's because it's an existing contract. She had approved the original contract. And so anyway, staff is requesting authorization to make a change order to this consultant's fees to help us administer these loans and these conditions and to close out the contract successfully with the state revolving loan fund.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for staff? We'll start with
Yeah,
Commissioner
I'm
Gao.
good.
Maker of
Thank you.
motion? Any questions?
No.
for him? Thank you very much. I had questions previously about the sum of money, but that was explained to me by the city manager. It's just an expensive procedure that you go through. Will you confirm that? I mean, I'm just asking so everyone can hear that.
It's a long
Yeah,
and
well-
expensive procedure. It's less than 3% of the funds. I mean, depending on how much work you're doing, there's more and more work for the loan consultant to do. And so when we increase the funding from what we initially anticipated at $12 million up to over $23 million, well, that's all that much more work they have to administer and to document and to show, document month after month, quarter after quarter, year after year to the state revolving loan fund that we're using that money wisely and as they have set up the program and allow for the use of.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Nan or Jorge, can you speak to that? What's the importance of the administration of the loan? What happens if it doesn't have that level of administration on it? What kind of trouble can the city get into? What kind of trouble, they're keeping us out of the weeds. How are they keeping us out of the weeds?
Well, as Dan has mentioned, it's a very cumbersome process as far as loan administration and compliance documentation. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, Angie Brewer and Associate, who is our loan administration consultant for the water treatment plant and a couple other projects we have, similar type work. It's very arduous. It's a burden really that we can't place on our finance department just because of the workload they already have and the staffing. And it's very specialized. These firms have direct contact with the DEP personnel. They attend the meetings. They go in and argue on our behalf for additional funds. You can imagine that every state agency is realizing the same issues that we are with increased cost on projects. So everybody's there with a hat in hand asking for additional funds. And so some agencies don't hire these firms. So they don't have those contacts. They don't have those lobbyists, if you will, that are they're trying to argue on your behalf for those funds. So one part of it is trying to get the additional funding at a very favorable interest rate. And then the second part is the compliance, to speak to your question. If you don't follow the prescribed requirements, then we fail in the audit portion of it. And what could happen is that those funds are then removed and you have to pay on your own nickel at that point. And in that case, we would have fronted the money and based all our future years budgeting on a much lower interest rate. And now we'd have to go out and float a bond to actually pay for those because we didn't comply. The whole portion of the compliance part of it is very key. If we don't follow those criteria and adhere to the loan program requirements, then those funds are in jeopardy and we would lose them. Not only on that project, but then on any future request, the fact that we didn't comply would not look favorably upon us getting future loans.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm following my little procedure here, and it,
Comments or questions?
yeah, it,
I don't think we have a motion on this.
Oh, we don't yet.
we don't have a motion yet. I'd like to open up for public hearing to see if anyone has any comments or questions at this point in time. I'll close the public hearing. Hearing and seeing none. Any comments?
So I think for a point of clarification for, anybody who's watching the proceedings here, I would say that what I have come to understand, and I did a lot of research on this because I saw the dollar figures involved and it's very clear the benefit that we get. It's also very clear that like any other government agency administrative issue, it can be very complicated. And I think I could easily see where this would become essentially the staff's full-time job, and we're not staffed for that. And so in the case of another consultant or another third party, in this particular case, it makes sense. So anyway, those are my comments.
Any other comments?
Nope.
I'm going to ask for a motion for the authorization and the execution of change order number 1 with Woodward and Curran as presented today for $364,000.
So moved.
Second.
And let's have a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. The third item today was to review and approve the 2024 at-a-glance calendar. Staff recommends postponing this item until October 3 work session. And so can I have a motion to postpone this date certain.
So moved.
Second.
And I think we got to take a voice vote on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we have the proposed agenda for the October 3, 2023 work session. Are there any changes to the agenda? May I ask for a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And we'll have a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. We're coming up to the workshop. Let's take about a 10-minute break, if that's agreeable.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
With authority.
With authority, we open up the workshop on this. We have a great presentation today. I always say it's great if we've been waiting for this for a while. I'm very anxious to hear this related to the Gulf infrastructure plan. See you later.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, there you go. And so this is, we're excited about this workshop to bring you this update. The City Commission, as you know, had funded a review of golf cart access infrastructure with an eye toward expanding our level of service for golf carts. So this is kind of the update report, and we're going to talk a little bit about next steps. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to George on that.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Yes, as the city manager mentioned, very exciting project for us as planners, and we're very excited to bring it to you. This is indeed a golf cart program update, and it directly hits on 2 action items in your multimodal plan. So that's really a key piece of it. And I just kind of want to read those in real quick. Action 4.17, implementing additional golf cart crossings and expanding golf cart zones to provide greater access and connectivity. And Action 4.18, developing a plan to identify additional areas for golf cart parking and additional amenities / improvements to accommodate golf cart usage. As the city manager mentioned, this was funded through a business plan initiative. We began the process in March of this year, and we hired Benish to help us with that plan. And sitting behind me is Robert, and I hope I get his last name correct, Robert Modis, who will be kind of providing you with a presentation on where we're at, what we've done, and where we're going next. By way of background, the purpose of the plan is to obviously include a review of the existing program and also think about, for inclusion, those crossing opportunities, infrastructure needs, any proposed changes within the land development code that might be necessary, including additions or deletions to the current golf program, and certainly any recommended capital improvements. This is the planning side of this process. We have been working with a golf cart working group that consists of city staff, members of the Chamber of Commerce Golf Cart Committee, FDOT, Pinellas County, and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. So it's been a great working group, and we've met with them fairly routinely through this first part of the effort. The group has reviewed past and current data to this point, and I just want to mention, by way of background, this is the kind of data assessment and data analysis piece of it. So what you're getting is kind of the finality of that, and then your input then will sort of structure the plan going forward for actual recommendations. But the group has reviewed current and past golf cart data, including registration processes, behavior, our existing crossings, our availability of downtown parking as it exists now, any educational things that we've been doing, and certainly those will be enhanced as part of this process. What's kind of neat about this particular item is Benish brought to it a survey that went out to a number of people, and he'll be talking a little bit about that. And we got an unbelievable response to that survey, which you'll see as part of the presentation. So with that, I'm going to kind of introduce Robert. And before I forget, I certainly want to recognize Kathy, our project manager on this thing. She's been instrumental in putting all this together and coordinating all the meetings and all those things that you would expect a project manager to do, and she's done it exceptionally well. And she's relatively new, so she's really hit the ground running for us, and I just want to say that I appreciate that from Kathy. But without further ado, I'll introduce Robert. He'll walk through a presentation. He will present, as the city manager mentioned, a status update relating to where we're at. We'll present kind of a project overview, a program evaluation, and talk about our next steps, which is really going to be the key part or the guts to that plan as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to ask Robert and Kathy to come on up. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for having me today. I'm going to do my best to speak into the microphone. I've been told I will be reprimanded if I do not. Just thank you, George, for that great introduction. Just as far as the agenda goes today, overall, what we'd really like is your all's feedback on what we've found to date. What we really did not want to do was go and make a master plan in a vacuum and then just give it to you at the end. We wanted to make sure that we were getting a lot of community feedback, folks on our stakeholder working group feedback, and of course, your all's feedback as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself, kind of what the project is. A lot of that was what George had shared. A really high-level regulatory overview. I think if anybody is aware of that, it would be you all, what you can and can't do and what you've done as far as your own program. And really, the biggest one would be just some hot topics that we've identified so far, get kind of your feedback on those, as well as give you a little bit of information about our really, really successful, as far as number of responses go, survey, and then give you a little bit about next steps. So about myself, my name is Robert Modies. You're really, really close on the last name, George. We tried. I am a project manager at Benish. We are about 1,000 employee civil engineering firm based out of Chicago. We were acquired as Tindo Oliver, which was a much smaller, about 100 employee Florida-based firm. We are out of Tampa. As far as my background, I am a city planner by trade. I'm a certified city planner as well as a member of the Congress for the New Urbanism. I do a lot of this kind of work, a lot of policy, transportation, bicycle pedestrian safety, trails, just any kind of master plan that you could think of. I've kind of touched that here or there, working in both the private and the public sectors. And as a firm, we only represent the public sector. So what is this project? So at a really, really high level, kind of from a scope of work standpoint, we looked at a regulatory and document review. So we're looking at what the state says we can do, what the county says we can do, and then what you all have done on your own level, relevant master plans, so that multimodal master plan, the sustainability master plan, the comprehensive plan, really just looking around, seeing is there anything that has called for golf carts that we can use this plan as a way to kind of advance and make sure that we're not rewriting something. If there's been a rule written already about golf carts, we don't want to go ahead and nullify that if it shouldn't be nullified. And then there's also a program evaluation, so that's kind of looking at charging and parking. We actually had some of city staff as well as some folks at Benish walk the downtown area on a few specified times to see where people are parking, looking at, is there demand for charging, public charging? Is that something that folks are looking for? And then how will that be implemented if so? Some best practices, looking at other areas within the state of Florida. I know people don't like being compared to the villages, but nobody does golf carts quite like the villages in Florida, as well as Peachtree, Georgia, as some of our best practices. Of course, we're looking at FDOT crossings, so where have our crossings been approved previously? Maybe have some been approved but not implemented? Have some been taken away? What are the rules for getting them improved? How can we best ensure compliance with those crossings? And then we're also looking at registration trends. So how popular has the program been over time? Kind of as a measure of, is this something that is really, really successful? And I think we know it is, and it's just kind of going back and looking at that and explaining that story. So public engagement, as I mentioned, we have our stakeholder working group, which has been really great. We've done one of those 2 meetings so far. Our online survey, which I'll go into in quite a bit more detail. Our public meeting, which is October 12th at 5:30 here at the City Hall. So that'll be an opportunity for members of the general public to come and go through different stations and watch our presentations and learn to this one, I'm sure. This City Commission workshop where we are today, an LPA meeting where Kathy and George will be presenting and getting some feedback there. And then finally, a City Commission meeting acting as the full City Commission for adopting the plan, possibly as it is or with some edits. So project outcomes, what can we expect out of this? So charging infrastructure, looking at demand based off of kind of best practices, some of the trends in the survey, we asked, are you interested in public charging? Is it something that you really need? And then we're also looking at the average length of a typical golf cart trip, just to see compared to, what is the range of a typical golf cart in Dunedin. So some recommendations on charging, some recommendations on crossing and operating areas. So we know that there are some limited areas in the city where you cannot currently cart and that the city is looking to expand those and maybe even eliminate those. That's done through crossings of state roads. So what can we do about having a better, more focused approach to crossings with FDOT to maybe see if we can have a little bit more success with. I know those are really, really tough to get, and you really, really want more, but hasn't been super easy so far. And then we're looking at the land development code. Are there opportunities for, folks coming into downtown, opening a restaurant to count golf cart parking towards their required land development code parking? And then can we look at some design standards? Are there opportunities for, perhaps golf carts are able to park two to a space rather than one to a space? That kind of thing. And then looking at introducing the repair and sales use as an allowable use in the downtown. Can you have a storefront that sells golf carts, golf cart accessories, that sort of thing? Safety and education, right? A really big one. We're looking at how can we improve education and safety, and that includes enforcement of existing rules that, if you're not on a golf cart, your probably primary concern is, are golf carts safe? Are they safe for me? And are golf cart drivers educated on the rules, and are they following the rules? So at a really, really high level, Florida statute enables programs to exist. It sets minimum standards for golf carts. You can see in the chart, that's the middle standard there. We also have the updated operating age per Florida statute in there as well. FDOT then is given the authority by the state to set, regulate crossings. So where can you and can you not cross state roads, which is what creates those islands within the city where you can and cannot operate. Pinellas County, if you're going to cross a county road, they're going to adjust your signal timing and generally operation within their roads that they have jurisdiction over. And then the city sets those general service areas and, requiring additional rules, which you can see on the chart. Golf carts in Dunedin versus a golf cart in Florida statute versus a low-speed vehicle, which is that golf cart that you register and title and it has a license plate. You all are kind of a hybrid of the two. In some ways, you require more than a golf cart. In other ways, you require a little bit less than maybe a low-speed vehicle. But broadly, we're just looking at, what does that look like from an additional rules standpoint, and where does that public feedback come in that, is there an operator age? What are you allowed, per your city attorney's interpretation of statute, allowed to do for operator age and other rules like that? So the program itself right now, 3 zones, 7 crossings. You have minimum equipment and rule standards. You have a required registration, and there's a registration process associated with that. You do have parking rules, but they're mostly related to paid parking, which is not currently a thing. You also have enforcement mechanisms as well, and then you do offer charging at a couple locations in the city. You can see this is registration, golf cart registration as of April of 23. You are already at 22 by April, which is not terribly surprising since it is an annual permit, but that does show that there is growth year over year within these registrations. And, by the end of the year, we'll be able to have a more final tally for 2023 registrations as well. But really clearly, this is a really popular program. So just looking at a really, really high level, we've got a map of the city. From there, overlaid are prohibited areas in red, are crossings in orange. So you can see just generally kind of the beginning of that tapestry within the city limits. You can see that the areas that are outside the city limits are a lighter gray. So those are not necessarily areas that the city has the authority to bring golf carts in and out of that would require kind of cooperation with Pinellas County, City of Clearwater. From there, overlaying on our operating areas, we've also got in a darker orange color the neighborhood-only areas. So those are areas that are landlocked by those mostly state roads and some higher speed, higher volume county roads where golf carts are not allowed. And then you've also got some landlocked areas, things like shopping centers. You can see, at the corner of County Road 1 and Main Street, there's a couple shopping centers that are kind of landlocked. So this kind of gives us our limitations of what can you, can't you do, and really the big question is how can all of these folks reach downtown and some of their wish lists to the north that are currently prohibited. So we did do a public survey that was open from June 9th.
Can I just ask a clarification?
Please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, just before we leave that, could those 7 crossings?
Yes.
I mean, I know the one that goes to the marina. I know the one that's at Bass. Could you just walk through those, what those specifically are?
Sure, I might need Kathy's help on street names. or George.
While you're talking, I'd like to make a quick comment in conjunction with this. Is that US 19 or is that Belcher on the map?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I had the same question.
Just for clarification. It says US 19. Yeah, that's Belcher.
Okay, we will
Just
correct
for
that.
clarification.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. So as far as the crossings go, starting on CR1, George.
Because it's been Christopher, Falcon, and Michigan. On CR1, from north to south? From south to north.
As far as Patricia Avenue goes, could I get some help on that one? To the south?
I can't see.
I know.
It's James, yeah.
James. And then there is in the vicinity of downtown, off the top of Ural's Head. Bass.
I guess I missed it. The one that's to the north on Alt 19.
Yes.
What is that?
Palm.
Okay, that's Palm. Okay.
Thank you. Work in a lot of different jurisdictions, so the street names can always be hard to do when you don't have a computer with a map in front of you. So I appreciate y'all's help on that. So public survey, that was open from June 19th to July 24th. That was advertised on the city's social media channels. It was picked up by a couple of different groups. It was also on the project website if folks were already aware of that. General structure, so the idea with the survey was to kind of get feedback on the program itself, not necessarily eliminating the program, but getting kind of, where is it working, where is it not working, what's the overall perception. So some of those strengths and weaknesses, we wanted to kind of inform the charging infrastructure for trip frequency, so how often are you riding, how far are you driving that golf cart, and why are you driving that golf cart, to kind of inform some of those. We did ask a few questions about safety so that we could get a better handle on what the public's perception is of safety issues, whether that is the golf carts behaving badly or golf carts not being a vehicle that folks are fond of, or maybe it's vehicles behaving badly around golf carts. So some of those safety concerns, and then we provided a couple of free response, where would you like to see additional crossings? Do you have any other additional comments about the program? So at a really high level, 2,200 responses. That is one of our most popular surveys to date at my firm. The general viewpoints as far as, who were we attracting, about half ride their golf cart 3 times or more a week, so kind of power users, and then about 40% don't use carts at all. If you did answer that you don't use a cart, you were referred to a why don't you? And about 44% of those don't own but are interested in owning and don't for a variety of reasons. Maybe their HOA prohibits golf carts. Maybe they're just not able to get in and out of their community as easily. And then about 30% of those said that they just don't want to own a golf cart and they're not interested. And so we got some feedback from those folks as well, which was really, really great to get that perspective on top of, everything else. So I know this one is a lot of text, but this is kind of our preliminary takeaways. We will go and provide staff with a much more detailed breakdown of these survey responses. As you can imagine, 2,100 is quite a few to go through, especially with so many free responses. So we're currently tackling that, but really what we're finding is the top wants, about 70% want more crossings, which matches the top concern, about 60%, a lack of crossings. About half wanted more designated paths, not necessarily the Pinellas Trail. We aren't recommending to have golf carts on the Pinellas Trail, but side paths on major roads where it's maybe higher volume or higher speed, either to enable carts to exist or otherwise. Folks want more parking, especially in the downtown. They want more signage about, where am I allowed to cross? Folks were interested in public charging. Folks were also interested in golf cart wayfinding. So when I'm out driving my cart, how can I find a crossing? Since those are maybe not necessarily where you would expect them to be if you're not super familiar with the program. And then about 20% wanted more safety training for golf cart drivers. So that definitely came from both sides. Folks saying that they themselves as a cart driver would like it, and folks that are in the driving only camp that just would like to see more safety training and enforcement. So on the top concerns, about half of the respondents, on top of the lack of crossings that we talked about, were concerned about non-cart driver behavior. So that came in the realm of, drivers in, cars and SUVs, trucks, that sort of thing, maybe not following traffic rules, speeding, tailgating, passing too closely, things like that. Again, a lack of designated paths. Folks are interested in golf carts, but they're not really a big fan of riding on these higher volume, higher speed roads. Improper riding, so that was things like folks are riding on the sidewalk, folks are riding on the Pinellas Trail, they're cutting through yards, that sort of thing. They're driving on roads that you're not supposed to drive on. About a quarter improper crossing, so crossing those prohibited roads where you're not supposed to cross those. And then about 17% were cart driver behavior, so a lot of that came up under the the realm of same thing with the cars, running stop signs, not yielding to pedestrians, DUI, that sort of thing. And then just a general poor understanding of the rules, not quite understanding where they can and cannot ride, what are the age restrictions, that sort of thing. So one big thing that comes up a lot anytime golf carts are mentioned on the city's social media or really anywhere is safety and compliance. So we wanted to take a deep dive into that so that we could provide you all with some great recommendations on how to address some of these bigger issues. So the big one, underage operation. Dunedin is a 16+ shop. The state of Florida is now a 15 with a learner's permit, 16, 17 with a driver, and 18+ with a photo ID. So you are a little bit more restrictive than the state in that regard. So about enforcing that. A lot about child seats and seat belts. So kids are on the golf carts, whether they're with their parents or operating it themselves. They're not wearing seat belts or the perception. Lap infants came up quite a bit as well. Cart driver behavior and crossing compliance. So that one is an obvious one. We're limited to where you're allowed to cross, and sometimes folks are maybe not always going to follow the rules. Interaction with larger vehicles, as mentioned. Parking compliance, a lot of folks frustrated with getting downtown and seeing a golf cart in a parking spot. Enforcement in crashes, so the perception that there are a lot of crashes and that there is not a lot of enforcement. So to kind of dive into that, we did have the opportunity through our working group to have a commander, I forget his last name, Commander Goldberg from the Sheriff's Office actually went and polled the interactions with officers for January 1st, 21 to June 30th of 23. That is limited to the way that the Sheriff's Office zones, so that includes Dunedin as well as Palm Harbor, Safety Harbor, and Oldsmar. Generally, those that were pulled over, there was a 41% citation rate, and 93% of those were over 18. These are just your top 4 interactions that they had with the Sheriff's Department. The full data will be available. Of course, that is redacted. It's limited information, not full crash reports or names or anything like that. But we're driving an unregistered vehicle, a golf cart on the sidewalk, DUI, and tag not displayed. So definitely golf cart on the sidewalk, DUI we get a lot of, driving an unregistered vehicle as far as the survey and maybe the perception goes, not as big of an issue to the general public, but certainly to officers as a reason to pull somebody over. So crashes, that was one thing. A really big disclaimer on crash data. This is involving only crashes that are reported. So, and that is only through officers. We don't really have a good way to get crashes other than through the statewide database. So there, if, for example, I crashed my cart and I hit my head and I took myself to an urgent care, that obviously is not going to show up in this. So we're only getting kind of the window of what was reported to officers, but we wanted to do that anyways. In 22, you had one reported crash, and then there's also the vehicle type. This is for low-speed vehicle. Officers would be able to enter other, and we just unfortunately didn't have the scope to be able to go through all of the crashes in the city to manually pull out other crashes that might have been a golf cart. So limited window with that caveat though. In 22, there was a crash involving a driver who had a medical episode. In 21, a car driver struck a parked cart. That was a DUI. In 20, there were 3 that were reported using this methodology. There was one, a cart driver struck a parked car while they were texting and driving. A cart driver rear-ended a car. I think that one involved a dog driving the cart. A vehicle rear-ended a cart. That was a distracted driving and DUI as well. In 2019, a utility pole fell on the cart. They, of course, reported that to the police for insurance purposes. And then in 2019, this one is very well-known. A cart passenger fell off of a golf cart while the driver was under the influence, and that did result in a really serious injury. So what we're kind of finding as far as data that we're able to access is the perception of safety, but maybe not necessarily, kind of injury crashes where you would have resulted in an officer being deployed to the scene. It's similar in the sense of bicycle and pedestrian crashes have the same gaps in data as well. If there's not an officer present to take a report, we just don't know about it. So crossings and operating, we're finding too few crossings. People are unaware of crossings. The routes to get around are circuitous. It's really difficult to naturally just point A to point B, go where you're going. And folks really want to go to Palm Harbor and Ozona really badly, getting a lot of those. Downtown, designated parking and charging. What we did not hear a lot about, we did ask, was development trade-off for developers, which kind of makes sense given the general audience of the survey. And then golf cart sales and repair, same thing. The general public is more focused on how can I drive my golf cart to where I'd like to go than some of these more higher level, maybe economic development. So as far as that goes, I'd like to go back to each of those individual major trends and sort of get kind of your feedback, if you have any on that, if that's okay, if you do have feedback, rather than just kind of general and structured, if that works for you all.
Commission, normally we take an opportunity now to ask questions, so everybody gets their questions out from what was presented. And then we do the comments. Did you want to change that, or should we follow that same procedure?
I mean, I like what he's suggesting.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
I'm flexible.
Good. Okay.
Sure. So I will go back, and if at any point you do think of something, shout it out, and we can go to the slide and do that. But really, as safety and compliance, I'd really love your feedback on if you all have any thoughts just generally on safety and compliance. Has there been anything that you've seen in another jurisdiction that you've really liked as far as enforcement goes, safety goes, education goes?
May I interrupt just for a brief moment, just so that you're aware of this? So normally what we do is we ask you questions.
Sure.
And then we come to public input.
Happy to.
And then we go back to us giving comments.
Sure.
So we'll shift that around for anybody that's in the audience. Everyone will get
Oh, I
a
meant
chance
for you all, though.
No, I know. I understand.
Okay,
I understand.
perfect.
So I'll give everybody an opportunity that's out in
Sure.
the audience to come back into this at some point in time.
Good.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, would you ask the question again? I apologize.
Yes, sir. Just generally safety and compliance, any of your thoughts on that? If there's anything that you all maybe have seen another agency do that you really kind of admired and would like to consider for the city, just really anything. Any general questions that we may have uncovered in our data, just really kind of just anything regarding safety, compliance, education, that sort of thing.
Do you mind if we do it this way? We'll start on this end, go this way. Next question, we'll start over here and go this way and just keep, if that's good.
That's good.
Vice Mayor, is your microphone on? Yes, it is.
Mine is.
Yeah, I just think he's talking like this.
Thank you.
So, something I would do.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I do have a few questions, and then I'll provide you some feedback on the slide as you've requested. You mentioned some public engagement dates. There was a couple in there. Can you go through those really quickly?
Sure. So there we go. Our working group meetings, so those were internal. Our first meeting, was that in June or July? That was at the very beginning of the project. So those are more focused towards, city departments, sheriff's department, that sort of thing. Our online survey, which did go out during those dates, June to July. And then the big one that I think you're asking about is the public meeting. That is October the 12th.
We're going to have a public meeting. It's October 12th at 5:30. It will be in the chambers, and also we'll have a couple tables out in the lobby. We're going to have Tina here. She's going to be talking about golf cart registration if people are interested. Benish will have a couple tables too for other input. And then Robert will give a presentation at that time.
Yeah, that's the date I was trying to, because for anybody who's watching, we're all getting a lot of questions about this because everybody is very excited about it. The other question I have is, so in terms of gaining access to some of the prohibited areas, how does that work? Do we have to submit a request?
Yes.
I'm assuming that request has to get reviewed. Who do we submit that request to?
Sure.
Anyways.
So the process has typically been from your Public Works Department, request from the district. There is a representative at the FDOT District 7 office for crossing state roads. There are detailed procedures that look at, everything from the signalization, is there a traffic signal, stop signs, yield signs, number of turn lanes, the crossing distance that the golf cart would have to get across the street. It also looks at the speed limit of the roadway that you would be crossing, and it also looks at the volume of vehicles in an hour. So what happens is the city requests to the district that we would like a crossing here. You provide kind of that basic preliminary data. They perform, I believe they just called a warrant study, look at that and say whether or not it works or not. There have been variances to that. For example, I think Bass Boulevard was initially tough to get because of the angle of the intersection. And I understand that that's being changed now again. Okay, great. I'm sure. And that's kind of the process. What we found is that it can be at times a little bit opaque. There have been instances where a crossing may have been approved in favor of replacing another crossing, similar to the way railroad crossings work. And so there is a defined process. And as part of what we wanted to do with, when we do look at, crossings that we think might be feasible into these prohibited areas, is to perform at the highest level with the best available data that we have. For example, we probably won't be able to get hourly vehicle data for an intersection. That's something that they typically collect at the time. But we would be able to kind of say, with a straight face, do we think that this is going to happen, or is there's just absolutely no way this is going to happen? So really the idea being, when we request things in the future, with an eye towards a lot more success rate, because it definitely is a tough process.
And I don't know if you're prepared to answer this one, but obviously there's a lot of interest in getting north of Curlew, and we have the Dunedin businesses up there, cricketers, a whole host of them that would really benefit by access. Have we made those requests, or are those specifically, kind of where do we stand with that?
Sure. To my knowledge, there hasn't been, and correct me if I'm wrong, the crew back here, a formal request for that. As far as I know, we did have an opportunity to go back and pull, I started out by kind of searching on, I believe you all use Granicus CART, and going through old agendas and looking at different ordinances that you have passed, looking at the golf cart committees. So we do kind of have a history of, where and when crossings have been requested and denied. But as with many things like this that go back with so many moving parts, it has been tough to get a really, really full, complete history. But As far as the data that I've seen, no.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. And then back to feedback on the safety and compliance. Just my comment on that would be that probably the top two are listed in your top two here, the underage operation and child seat belts. Because there is, I believe that even for Dunedin street legal, there is a requirement for seat belts and so I would say that, any observation or input that I might provide to that is just around, being responsible, number one. And number two, obviously enforcement, but, there's a lot of things that, that deter from the enforcement of that, just, resources. But anyway, those would be my comments.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really have any specific questions, and those were great questions. A couple things on safety. I just think it's interesting from the perspective of how the state analyzes, because sometimes I'm at Monroe and Alt 19, and just close your eyes and that's how you feel. And versus then you can't go through the Main Street intersection. To me, that makes absolutely no sense from a safety point of view. It's so close to the intersection, if, knock on wood. If I was going to see something happen that's bad, it would be at Monroe and Old 19. And right there's a light, it would be safe. So I don't know how they're analyzing that, but it doesn't make sense to me. And the other thing, I don't have any brilliant ideas from other communities. My biggest fear is always that we're horrible, accident away from blowing up this fun thing. And so, so as much education as we can do and as much clarity as we can do is really good. I have been shopping for a six-seater of late, so it's interesting. Oh, my mic's not on, sorry about that. I've been shopping.
Can you start over, please?
Yeah, I know, sorry. I will say, Monroe Alt 19 is way less safe than Main Street, directly on Alt 19. So again, because I know when you watch these meetings, you actually can't hear if your mic's not on from the public standpoint. So it was just interesting. One of the things I noticed as I'm shopping is the quality of the seat belts. So I'm going to say a couple name brands here. So Evolution, we were looking at a six-seater Evolution, and the seat belts are full seat belts. And they're easy, they're comfortable, Easy Go, which we're Easy Go people. I like Easy Go, better quality in a lot of other ways, but the reality is you put that seatbelt on and it's just the lower body and it is just so tight. You don't want to wear it. I always feel bad when I make the kids wear it, but they have to wear it. So I mean, some of it might be the golf cart industry getting a little bit better with making them something you want to put on versus something that feels so restrictive. Totally agree with you on going, getting north of Curlew. That would just be great. But obviously, from a safety perspective, you're in the right direction. What are other communities doing that are great ideas? And then I do think the whole clarity of where people are allowed to go, which I do think is going to need to be some flexibility, just like the Monroe Alt 19 versus Main Street Alt 19. To me, the common sense is the traffic light. So anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gallo?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anybody that knows me for half a second knows of my need to diversify our transportation system. So this is gold. You mentioned Peachtree City and the villages, and I would consider Peachtree City kind of a gold standard on where we would want to go. If I recall that, even if you go by their high school, their parking lot is full of golf carts as opposed to cars, which is a wonderful direction. So I would ask that for Peachtree City and the villages, what's the number of county roads in those jurisdictions or state roads in those jurisdictions? And if they have those there, what's their relationship, with villages, with FDOT, and for Georgia would be GDOT?
Sure. I can tell you just without kind of not answering that question, but answering it, they do a lot of underpasses. Even the Villages has a really, really significant network of underpasses under state roadways, kind of looking at their very, very extensive map. And the same thing with Peachtree City, where they have the benefit of topology that we certainly don't have here, but the Villages isn't really, it doesn't have a glut of hills. Is that they tend to go under the state highways rather than over the state highways. If you look at any of the main roads, when you're following their map on one screen and Google Maps on the other, is they tend to go under the roads. And that wasn't the answer that I was hoping to see especially with the Villages, because there's a direct precedent to within, have DOT within a different district, but the same organization behaves as far as golf cart crossings go. But really, they are both, they're both wonderful, but they're extremely capital intensive, and maybe even in a way that isn't necessarily directly applicable to Dunedin, just from a, drainage standpoint. But we will certainly look into it a little bit more to see if, maybe they've had more luck with their organizations, because Georgia does have similar rules to Florida statute.
Well, I think the whole challenge that we have here is that the public is ahead of the regulation, and it's ahead of DOT, and we're having to force them to change, which is trying to turn a Titanic sometimes. But they are turning. Right, so that's the good news. Because I just see that the top one, 68% was more crossings, and all of that is county or state challenged, I guess. So if we could work with them more, if they'd be a little more flexible, because the idea that we shouldn't have or have the need for wayfinding throughout our city, because it should be just go where you want to go.
Correct.
Unless we want wayfinding to be directing them towards a specific location, not how to get there. Mm-hmm. Would be my focus. Designated cart paths or designated paths.
That was really kind of, as far as what we were thinking, it was side paths. One problem with that is there are some areas where that might be, where you have quite a bit of right-of-way, where that might be something that could work, but right-of-way is always an issue. And so without, if you do have a little bit of right-of-way for a path, about 12 feet would be appropriate for a cart. That is about the width of a travel lane. That gets your carts off of these streets. That is definitely something to look at, especially on some of these, more major roads. It is permissible under Florida statute, it is permissible under FDOT's regulations, but it's certainly a right-of-way issue. But kind of what that tells us is that speed and volume is maybe a little bit too high. I'm sure you're familiar with as far as the bike ped industry, especially the bike industry, we've moved away from just getting a bike lane on every road and now looking at level of comfort so that all riders feel comfortable. And that's kind of what we're seeing as far as the trend goes in the survey, as far as that need. But that did, just about.
Okay, so the designated bike paths is what it sounds like a bike lane, only for golf carts.
Sure, like a shared use path.
Okay. Interesting. But if we had more bike paths, more golf carts, then we might not
Absolutely.
need the golf cart paths, because more people would be on bikes or in golf carts. Just food for thought. And the under the top concerns, it had non-golf cart driver behavior. So are they mad? So that's directed at cars.
That's,
Car drivers.
it's the same thing with riding a bicycle. A car is a lot scarier in a bicycle than the bicycle is to the person driving the car. And a golf cart is a smaller vehicle, it's open air. A car maybe not even passing all that fast to the perception of the folks driving the car. Might seem, the person driving the car says, I didn't pass that closely, it wasn't that fast. But to the person walking, the person biking, the person in the golf cart, it's the same thing. And so really it was, I think we know it's kind of endemic in Florida, bad behavior behind the wheel. And the smaller the vehicle, the more obvious that bad behavior is. When I've got a cage around me with airbags and an air conditioning and a radio, it's not as bad as when I'm in a golf cart or when I'm on my bicycle or whether I'm crossing the street on foot. So that was kind of that. And it helps target as far as our education and enforcement goes, and lets folks know, with a bicycle you should be passing at least 3 feet. Maybe there's some kind of education as far as how should I pass a golf cart.
And the other top concerns, or a lot of them, improper riding, improper crossing, et cetera, et cetera, those seem to me more just enforcement issues than
And that is
other issues.
That's absolutely what we were hoping to find with the survey, because they're addressable. If it's wholesale, I just don't want to see golf carts. There's nothing I can suggest to make you happy with that. But if it's getting behavior under control, getting folks educated, those are great negatives to have, because we can start taking a stab at doing that, where if it's just getting rid of golf carts, it's not actionable other than getting rid of golf carts. So that is definitely one of our big outcomes, is we're going to try to come up with as many ways to educate folks, whether they're on a golf cart or whether they're not, about what the rules are, how to maybe behave appropriately around one another with courtesy, that kind of thing. Might be asking a lot, but definitely that will be a big outcome of this plan.
Okay. And in your design or your help with us, do you differentiate between streets, roads, stroads, boulevards, highways, and what are some good avenues to where it's not that we don't want golf carts on them, but the purpose of that road?
So that is not really something that we're addressing. It's kind of inherent to where you can and can't ride a golf cart. Streets and roads, typically, those are going to be your lower volume. Lower volume are typically, they don't serve kind of as a regional level. It's more local, so they're more likely to be owned by the city of Dunedin, and therefore golf carts are allowed. Where those bigger, your stroads, your great big boulevards, that sort of thing, those are typically more a regional purpose, so those fall under the jurisdiction of the county or the state, which is where typically you're not able to. So it's kind of addressed, but not directly addressed as far as a street typology standpoint goes.
Or we just go with underpasses?
The dream.
Now, this is, when it talks about charging stations and things of that nature, where are we with battery storage on golf carts and the efficiencies of batteries and range? Because a lot of this is focused on range anxiety.
Sure.
Right? They want to, if they get downtown or wherever they're going, they want to be able to make sure they get back home. Where are we with that? Is it trending upward, or is it?
Sure. Some folks behind me might be a little bit more knowledgeable as far as what the range of a typical vehicle is like. But that was something that we were intending to kind of look at as far as, what are some of those big brands that you see, EasyGo, that sort of thing. Looking at generally what the range looks like, and then we can see that the majority of people are going, say, 1 to 3 miles on their trip. So that's a 6-mile round trip. It means that probably charging downtown is nice to have, and it's good for an emergency, but maybe not something you need at every parking spot, which is great because that's less capital intensive. There's no maintenance associated with that. And then the other good thing about a golf cart charger is that it plugs into the wall. It's not like a vehicle charger you need quite a bit more equipment, where a lot of, for example, light poles to allow Christmas lights, they have plugs in them. There's avenues to quickly retrofitting where with a car charger, we've got conduit, we've got the charger itself, we've got to maintain it, we've got to make sure that it's working. We might have to run, instead of 120, we might have to run 240 volt electric service, which now we're playing with the panel. It's much, much easier to implement, but that was kind of what we were looking at as far as seeing the distance that folks are going on their typical trip, to see, is this something that's a nice to have, or is it something we really, really need to have?
Well, and I would think that the more we expand and we're able to work with DOT, certainly distance will be a thing.
Absolutely.
And especially with the onslaught of e-bikes, what that does is that opens up really diversified transportation, lower vehicles, and if we have charging stations that allow St. Pete to get to Dunedin, Tarpon to get to Dunedin, charge them up and then let them spend their money here and go home. So wonderful thing. Safety training, 19%. What responsibility is that of the city versus the Florida Driver's Handbook. What do you think they meant when they said safety training?
I think it's going through, so the benefit that I have that I've seen from this compared to, the presentation is I've gone through and read manually the individual comments. I think it's, to your point, it's definitely more handbook training as far as, the privilege to drive. But one thing that in another job, I was the micromobility manager, and one thing that the operators did from the private sector standpoint was they would have a special event a couple times a year, and you could ride that e-bike or you could ride a scooter on a closed course, and then at the end, maybe you were pushed into a drawing with those because they're for rent, you got a little bit of free time. So maybe that's something to team up with the private sector on, as far as, if we have any golf cart boosters, maybe they can get together and get some opportunities for voluntary participation in some of these training as part of a drawing or some other kind of event. But really, I don't see a huge role for the city aside from maybe having a more kind of up-to-date handbook that's really clear and concise about rules of the road of a golf cart, things to be aware of, and maybe some public service campaigns, that kind of thing.
Okay. I'm in favor of a handbook. I'd be concerned that any handbook that the city of Dunedin has, we don't capture everything in the state law, and all of a sudden we get, well, wait a minute, it's here but not here, or we left something out, or we added something that's not there. That would be kind of scary. Now, a personal rabbit hole I'm going to go down is that you have new urbanism in your background, and project manager, and you've done some multimodal pedestrian bike master plans as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was just for clarification. That's all the questions that I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to attempt to give you input first to your question. Then if it's okay with I'll then make a few questions that I have. And if it's okay with the commission here, then I would like to give the opportunity for the public to come up and have some moments up here. And then we'll go back and we can come back with our comments later. And if anybody has any additional questions up here, we'll ask them at that point in time. So to respond to your question, the safety and compliance that we would like, my always biggest concern is children riding on a golf cart. And I think that's of many people, especially when we've all seen them. We've all seen them completely out of control. And the compliance, we have to do something about that, and we have to tell them that we're going to do something about that, and just plain not allow it. Because someone said up here, I think it was Commissioner Franey, if we could see this whole thing go away if we're not careful, if we don't do this right. I'm going to make a comment. Remember, we're really only doing questions to you, but we've done a few comments up here. And as everybody knows here, I'm for all of Dunedin being golf cart. We presented from the CRA in about 2011 to the commission for us to become a golf cart city. And we were told, well, we have all these limitations. And we said, we'll just take what we can take for now, and then let's expand it. And I certainly would like to see us go faster. So I'm not going to list any particular areas and ask any questions about that. While we did that, I looked into a company, it's a European company, that actually does the under the roads, because I could not figure out what we would do up at the big intersection at Curlew. We've got people on the other side of Curlew that start all the way from our boundaries up north all the way out to our western boundary, or eastern boundary to our western boundary, that are restricted. They just can't be there. So, or we blow the whistle and the intersection stops and everybody does whatever they want to do for 1 minute or 2 minutes, and we allow whatever happens to happen. But I'm for all of Dunedin. So when I ask my questions, were there any surprises to you from anything that came out of this?
As far as the survey goes or the research goes?
As far as the survey goes, yeah.
I hate to say no, but no, it was about the spread that I expected it to be. The general comments, I think we've heard so much about what the frustrations and what people love about it are, that we already knew what people were going to be frustrated about, and we already knew what people really love about it, that it's a fun way to get around, or that it's a frustrating thing to be behind in traffic. So generally, no, it's about what I expected.
Thank you. When we did, by the way, when we did the presentation from the CRA for the golf carts here, we did use Peachtree. And I had been a little bit involved in the business before. I'm driving golf carts all over the place, right along with my neighbor over there. And so as we got into this, the comment that I've heard before was designated paths, and you came up with that here. I was quite surprised. Would you, again, I think that question was asked just a little bit, well, what do they mean by that in this, and just in your test?
Sure. It's typically a designated path for, especially from the way that we're looking at it, would just be any path that is separated from traffic that a golf cart would be permitted to be on, that's wide enough for a golf cart to be on.
Okay, that's what you feel they meant here. The public charging, the question was, somebody's going to make a comment about batteries, et cetera. It just all depends. I mean, I could have the best batteries in the world, and they're very, very old, and I'm not taking care of them, and I'm going to have an issue. So it becomes who's going to support that. And I think you asked that question, but we really didn't get any positive or any commonality back on that, did we? I mean, should this, for example, it was asked, should the city be providing this as a service, or is this a service that's provided by an entrepreneur that, I don't know, maybe has batteries on the back of his vehicle or a charging system on the back or what have you? Was there any indication? I didn't see one when I went through what I have.
Yes. So when you do see the full report that includes the full service or survey data, we did ask about what kind of golf cart do people have today, and what kind of golf cart, or what is it powered by? So we asked if basically I have a electric golf cart today and I'd like public charging, I would, and it kind of et cetera, through gasoline powered, or I just don't want a golf cart. And folks really do want public charging. And so that becomes, if I have an electric cart, of course I'd love to charge it downtown, with a free charger. So that becomes kind of a question of policy for the city, as far as, to your point, the brand new cart probably has really great range. That really old club car that somebody has not maintained very well and never takes off the charger, it probably has really bad range. So it's kind of, where is it advantageous to do that? Is it advantageous to the city? Is it more kind of from an entrepreneurial standpoint? Is it something that you can, bid out as a city service? There's so many different ways to put it, but certainly there, from our survey, of course, there was demand indicated for it.
I wanted to ask that question because I'm going to make a comment about that later, because I want to make sure that when I make my comment about it, that it's realized that I don't want that to keep us from having a golf cart program here, and I'll explain that later. If it's okay with the commission, then I'd like to ask for some. Do you have more? You had more questions, correct? Yes.
Any format that you guys would like. If it's more advantageous to go with just public comment, and if you all have general questions, I'm happy to do it that way. If you'd like to go slide by slide, I'm happy to do it that way. It is completely up to you all what you prefer.
I'd like to give the public an opportunity to talk if we can. Does that sound?
Oh, yes,
okay,
sir.
Good. Okay, let's go ahead and open this for public input. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment about any subject matter here relating to this?
Good morning.
Good morning. And state your name, please. And
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Andy Pulse. I've been on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors for the past 7 years. As chair of the Chamber's Golf Cart and Transportation Committee, I led this working group in meetings for over the past year or so. This group of stakeholders includes residents, business owners, those with an interest in the golf cart accessibility infrastructure. We poured over the maps, put a lot of gainful thought into the program, what's missing, how to make it better. We've come up with a pretty comprehensive list of goals and objectives, and specifically how to accomplish these objectives for the consultants, for the Benish group there. And it's encouraging to see Robert and them kind of do a deep dive here, not just gloss over what our needs are and what our stated wishes are. As we stated to them, our goals are to make Dunedin 100% golf cart accessible, connect us to Ozona and Palm Harbor, allow credit for businesses for golf cart parking, and allow the ancillary businesses in the downtown core, sales, rentals, repairs. Incidentally, since the time we met, I've been approached by a group from Clearwater that they're trying to do a golf cart infrastructure plan in Clearwater. Their goal is to give the folks of Dunedin, and by default, if we can connect to Ozona, Palm Harbor, access to Cleveland Street, the Grove, the Bluff, and vice versa. So it's definitely growing. Our fear, and we've expressed this to the Benish Group, is that all of the input and the suggestions, the stakeholder group actually gets inputted into their recommendations, or at least as much of it as possible. And we've seen this in the past. Sometimes the city, with the best of intentions, that after input is solicited and given, what emerges from the grinder looks nothing like what was put in. We want to make sure just not the low-hanging fruit is addressed. And we've asked for a lot, a heck of a lot, to make Dunedin a 100% golf cart accessible. We know it's going to take some work. We know there's a lot of paws in the broth with the county and the state, but I think we all want the same thing here. And with the willingness to overcome any objections that may arise, we've done it before, we can do it again. We should be able to accomplish just about everything on the wish list here. There's a lot of things you guys have mentioned that we're not using. The combined bike and golf cart pass, the dedicated pass, overpasses, underpasses, that we do have examples from, and using these, we've shown exactly how we can get to Causeway Plaza and Dunedin Causeway, and cross some of these places that we can't currently cross. So hopefully everybody here can roll up their sleeves, and we get presented a very comprehensive wish list from the stakeholder group, and that's all I've got to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward?
Hi, Eric Peterson, 1336 North Lotus Drive. So I kind of echo Andy's thoughts there, but I've heard mentioned a couple of times golf carts going away. I'm here to tell you golf carts are not going to go away. Golf carts are legal in the state of Florida. What our ordinance does is reduces the cost of our residents to be able to utilize that. Really, when you compare the two, we've got the state where we can pay for the registration, we can pay for the insurance. That's fairly expensive stuff. Come to Dunedin, got our golf cart map, we cut that completely out. So it's not a matter of taking away a privilege or giving a privilege. Really, when you break it down, our ordinance reduces the cost of using a golf cart in Dunedin. That's what makes it so valuable, and that's why our residents enjoy it. One of the other things, I'm really going to unfortunately shortcut this, but I want to get it in your minds and on the table. We have Sterling Links Park, and I know the plans for Sterling Links are coming together right now. There's a piece that Andy mentioned about getting to the north, and it uses a shell path through Sterling Links and a crossover through Tradewinds. It's just a proposal, but I want to get it in front of you, and I want to get it on the table and get it working in your minds before one project closes, before the other one even starts. All right, so just if you could note that down, Tradewinds, there's a natural opening in the curve. You've got Sterling Links Park that already has golf cart paths through it. If you want to get up to the corner and get up over into the plaza over there, that's kind of the easy route with major cost avoidance and minimal effort on our part. So again, don't want to shortcut anything we're doing, but I do want to get it out in front of you because the Sterling Links program is on the table right now. And I just lost my last note. There we go. Regarding public charging, we actually have a couple of options now. So you can certainly do it with an AC outlet at lampposts, and even some businesses have it on the side of their buildings. But we also now have adapters that can utilize regular electric car chargers, the pedestals, and be able to adapt a golf cart to that. I only bring it to your attention is if you're forward-looking and you're planning, if you have a company like Shell who does the 15 EV chargers that are in our city right now, we have 2 over at the community center, and you know the ones we have out here, and we have several going down Douglas. We have some over by the marina, and then again a little bit further behind Mangoes and Marley. So there's 15 chargers. There will be more. It's just a matter of demand. And so you asked about third parties coming in, entrepreneurs coming in. Yeah, that would be an opportunity as well. So I think we have to keep our minds open. The technology has changed considerably. And charging can happen with a 110 outlet. It can happen with an EV charger. And yes, it is able. You are able to adapt a golf cart to that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. Let's do a round again. Why don't we?
Is there anybody else?
Is there anyone else that wants to like to say?
Yeah, I was just going to touch.
Oh, please. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Elaine Brakes. I own Big Time Carts in Palm Harbor. We originally wanted to be here, but that could not happen. But I was just going to touch base on the charging and the length of charge. So our newer golf carts with the lithium batteries can go much longer distance than the older, and they charge super fast. So you can get like a 30-minute charge, 20-minute charge, and get like almost fully charged in a short period of time. So that has changed. You know, the older batteries can't charge very fast. They have to charge all night. But I just wanted to point that out, that the batteries have evolved and the charging is much easier, and you can get longer distance out of a single charge, like 30, 40 miles on a single charge. That was my only input.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward? Hearing and seeing none. Why don't we still may have some questions because we did this a little differently, so why don't we include questions, and if anybody has any comments, and I'll just ask if anybody would like to go first. How about that?
So how many golf carts are registered here in the city of Dunedin?
Where was that slide?
I missed that.
Commissioner, we're pushing 1,400 this year.
All right. And so I just want to make note of the survey. 22 respondents, which assumes that you did get a fairly good section of non-golf cart people. So this potentially might be the most statistically significant survey I've ever seen come out of government before. That's a good thing. I've got no further questions. Thanks.
George, just clarify for me. From the perspective of what's allowed in downtown now from a repair sales of golf cart?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Commissioner. So right now, the state of Florida has a golf cart basically identified as a motor vehicle. So when you look at a motor vehicle, from a code standpoint, we're looking at that provision for motor vehicle sales and repair. And it's, most of the downtown is downtown core, which would not permit that at this point.
Right, and I mean, and I get that there's some enthusiasm about having something downtown, but, you know, being somebody who remembers the auto parts store and the auto tow place that was where Smokehouse is now and living room, yeah, I'm not ready to go down that slippery slope, but, you know, we'll see what creative things you guys come up with. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't really have any other questions. I think this is great. I mean, I agree with Eric. Golf carts are here to stay. It's exciting, but, you know, what's really important is, I like the broad goal of Andy. Like, you know, if we could get to 100%, that'd be awesome. And, you know, obviously the biggest thing is you got to think big, but we got to think safe, so.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The survey, and I just want to piggyback on what Commissioner Walker was talking about. The people that filled out the survey, the number of registered and non-cart owners. And I'm wondering was there a way to differentiate, is it where you think they were non-cart owners or just non-registered cart owners?
It's a mix, certainly a mix. There were folks that, so in one of the questions with the don't own but want to, so that was 30% of the folks who said that they don't use carts shared that. You can always fill out a survey wrong, so there's always the possibility that, you know, there's a little of that going on. But I saw a lot of I really want to own a cart, but my condo association prohibits it or my HOA prohibits it. I saw a lot of, I happen to live in one of the areas that's landlocked or prohibited altogether. So there's definitely demand for expansion. That was demonstrated by the survey. Obviously, you all hear from it, I'm sure, from constituents all the time, but the survey did substantiate that as well.
Okay. And George, you mentioned we're pushing 1,400 registered. Do we have any idea on the number of carts in Dunedin in total? How many that might be unregistered?
We wouldn't have any way to track that, Commissioner, but I would assume it's probably pretty close to the number of registered vehicles, because if you've got one, you're probably going to use it. But if you're in one of those subdivisions where you're kind of locked into that subdivision, you might maybe not register in your cart, so there might be a few outliers there, but I would assume we're probably pretty close to the number of registrations.
Okay. And just to circle back, the conversation or questions regarding state roads and DOT, and they're getting a little more flexible. How more flexible are they? How much lobbying needs to be done? How much more work needs to be done in, because we have issues with bikes, e-bikes, golf carts, and the real need for FDOT to speed up their philosophy. And so where do you think we are on that? Is we're just painstakingly slow, or do you see that given demand in 5 years it'll be different?
It's hard to answer that one directly. So from what we found, just looking at it historically, FDOT is still pretty cautious. As an organization, they're always very cautious as far as all of our transportation, groups that have a role in Florida go. And that's, honestly, it's a good thing. And one thing that they like, because they're one of the more cautious groups, is predictability. And so one of our thoughts when working on the master plan between myself and staff and my team at Benish is that it would be advantageous to the city to say, here is a list of our ultimate crossings. That there's the dream big, every crossing all the time, right? Unlikely to achieve that in this decade, maybe, but certainly it would be helpful to say, here are our landlocked areas, here's our plan to address not having landlocked areas, here's our plan to address having, crossings that might make sense to a rider and that are predictable, just thinking about a mental map where I'm able to cross. And having that might make you more successful when it does come time that you've got the, the capital funds ready to go ahead and request a new crossing. And so that was generally our thinking. Lobbying, certainly, if you all have a lobbyist, that is a great thing to add to your list, is how can I make it easier to expand carting within the city, especially as it pertains to crossings. The advancement with the legislature this year, it was one of the, the good things for municipalities was raising that age from 14, so there is not a justification for a 14-year-old to be driving a golf cart by themselves. So there, is always opportunity for advancement there. But I think having a thought out, well-justified list of here's where we want and when and why and how, I think that would probably be a good way to go about it.
Okay. And survey, sales and repair downtown, was it we need more of that in Dunedin, or were they really interested in we need to have that in our downtown?
Really, what folks were interested as far as downtown and business goes was accessing businesses that are maybe outside of the city limits, but more as far as things that are actionable for you all as a council or a commission is businesses within Dunedin that are not currently within the operating zone. Grocery store, grocery store, grocery store, grocery store. I got Publix more times than you can count, but we will count it. That sort of thing came up quite a bit. As far as the downtown sales and I think just because this was a general audience is going to be more focused on, can I get to the grocery store? Not necessarily, can I buy my new cart downtown? Can I buy my new rain cover for my seats downtown? Whatever that accessory is. And so I wouldn't have expected it to be up there high, but I certainly don't think that means it's not worth pursuing, especially if we can find a way to define golf carts in a way that doesn't also allow, a tow wrecking yard and oil changes and that sort of thing in downtown.
Okay, because I can maybe see if we can make that change, the possibility of repairing, but sales downtown, and just people driving their cars downtown to buy a golf cart, why don't they buy it outside the downtown?
Sure.
And then drive it in.
Sure, and who knows, maybe there's a lot of accessories to sell.
Right.
I don't think people are gonna, this is just me, there's not a lot of money in repairs. So if a business is paying that premium to have a business downtown, they're gonna want the sales too, you know what I mean?
That makes sense.
It's similar to some of the EV companies that are not legacy brands. Tesla started out, most of their bread and butter was downtowns and malls where your Tesla stores were. Lucid is another new EV company. They're all in malls and downtowns. So it does seem like a good opportunity for if you're selling a really premium product and you can justify that per square cost in a downtown. Where if you sell one $40,000 cart, you've made your rent for the month, and then some. Maybe that is, or a satellite showroom for a larger where they've only got one or two vehicles, which is the Tesla and, Lucid. Polestar is another EV company that does the same thing. So that was kind of what we were envisioning, more the sales than the repair, just because land is at a premium.
And I would think, and this might be a conversation for another time, but when it comes to repair, my thought, not being a golf cart owner myself, is that most of the time that's going to break down when you go to start it. So it's at some destination, either home or wherever you were planning to go. And so it's always a tow or some other method to get it to the repair. Okay, and so that's something that we probably don't want in our downtown, is tow trucks or that delivery vehicle, however it's delivered. But certainly that's up for future discussion. Comments would be, yes, please, more, and it's not fast enough. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just so there's no misunderstanding, did anybody have any comments that they might feel they may have missed on, or I just want to make sure we're communicating well. We changed around how we do this, so I apologize about that, but we're okay? I'll go ahead and make mine then, if that's good. So I can just follow up on what Commissioner Gao just said. Let's just do this, and let's just do this now. And I'm all for Dunedin being, and the entire city being, and there's other issues after that. But we can do that now. As we all know, if your golf cart breaks down, you can push it, you can pull it, you can leave it and run away, you can sell it, you can get somebody to come and pick it up. It's a motor vehicle. It's the same thing you do with a motor vehicle. It's exactly the same with a motor vehicle. How do you get it charged? It's the same way if you have an electric vehicle. If something happens to it, you can try to find a charging station if you have enough to get there. I've driven golf carts all over the city, as everyone knows. Older golf carts, my son's golf carts that we had for him, et cetera. This is back in the day. And fortunately, I never had a problem getting back home again, but you just pay attention to what your charge is. So those are infrastructure things, I think, that kind of work themselves out. They're all great to have on a list, but I'd really like to see us just do this and make Dunedin a golf cart city in its entirety, to the best of our ability, to the quickest of our ability. So these other issues are important and are good. Certainly safety is. For example, having children on a golf cart and how are they to be seated? It still could be a problem if there's an accident, et cetera. And again, I come back to what I always say. When you come across the golf cart, just chill. Just like every other vehicle. If there's somebody going a little bit slow, just chill. We're in Dunedin. And so let's make it a golf cart city and treat it that way. So we're after a consensus here.
Hey, John, can I just,
Yes,
sorry, can
ma'am.
I just make one
Please.
random comment? Because we're just shopping, and we literally went through this exercise of, could we do away with one of our cars? So we could literally have a car and have a golf cart. And the biggest issue was how to get to the Hawks. Or Granada or Cala DC, how do you get to, that became the number one
And you can't, you can't.
And just, I kind of wanted to put in your head, because it was like, yep, we could solve that thing, then we could probably get rid of the car. So, anyway.
Make it
Can I
all,
piggyback that?
all of Dunedin.
I'm sorry. And to Mo's point, according to AAA, it costs the average homeowner $10,000 a year to have a car, between the car payment, car insurance, fuel, repairs. And not that golf carts can replace cars for everybody, but especially if you're in a two-car home, that gives you the ability to drop down to one car and a golf cart, or one car and an e-bike or a bicycle. That is tens of thousands of dollars residents are saving. And when we're in an environment of inflation, we're in an environment of we don't know what property insurance is going to do. You know, it used to be affordable housing is an issue, and it is. But now for those that can get into an affordable housing, property insurance is going to push them out. And that this is an opportunity to really make an impact in that regards as well. So there are a multitude of reasons to do this, for quality of life, for in the environment, for quality of life, for affordable housing. So anyway, I'm sorry, John. Thank you.
No, that's just great. I'll make
May I
a comment if I may.
piggyback?
So it makes us a resident. We're all together. We can't, as of right now, we theoretically cannot go outside of Dunedin. And so for right now, okay, but let's make sure we are. And then we see each other and we support golf carts. It makes them safer, it makes us safer, but it makes us have fun too. If I may, we got to be careful, so I'm going to stay up here for a bit and
Yeah,
maybe
mine's
you can
quick.
shout something out if you want.
Just to piggyback, we made a conscious decision to downsize to one automobile, and the golf cart is our second car. And I do, like, just for big-time carts and all the fact that we have so many more choices in Dunedin now with regards to how we manage our golf carts, where we get our golf carts, how we accessorize our golf carts. So I just think this is just a real positive thing for the community, and that's all I've got, sir.
So would we say that we're all in favor of going
I think you could say that.
far and fast forward?
Yeah, pedal down.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If I may, I just want to ask staff and our consultant if there's any other information or general direction that you need besides consensus to move forward.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Does anybody really feel they we're breaking some, okay, we're fine. I'm going to leave that as a consensus from the commission, with great input from experienced people in our community that have been very involved in golf carts from a great resulting test. And I think we'll leave it that way. I don't think there's any other questions from the city manager for us at this point.
We have our direction. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you all. Great presentation.
Thank you all for your time.
Great input. Thank you. So we have come to our informational items. We have commission discussion, and as I understand, we've had one commissioner who's put in a request for have a brief conversation.
Well, and I'm sorry, yeah, and I did put it down as discussion, but it is more comments. So I'll wait until comments. More appropriate.
All right then. So shall we move to the city clerk's update?
No update. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
City manager's update.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The city manager's update is attached.
And is there anything that you feel, would you just give us just another comment about what happened and what's going on regarding FEMA and the storm?
Certainly, absolutely. And that brings up a very good point. We do have our meeting tomorrow at Andrews Memorial Chapel with the folks in and around North Douglas. I had originally invited FEMA to that meeting. I will have all the information that they provided to us, but the subject is drainage and flooding in that area, and FEMA I don't think would be appropriate, because the gentleman I talked to had a lot to say, about what is available. We can call a separate meeting if need be, if the neighborhood wants to. But I want to keep it on subject. And so FEMA has been through the neighborhood. We have been one push through the neighborhood. We've picked up storm debris. We will come by again because technically, you have first of all, the items that were impacted by the original flooding and then those that are impacted subsequent to the flooding as well within the household. We did immediately after the storm pick up food waste and some landscape debris by the curbs as well. So I think that there was a kind of a general thought out there that we weren't going through the neighborhoods at all, and we did because, when they threw out the refrigerators, out went all the food too, and we wanted to remove that. So as the Vice Mayor had stated during DCO last week, we've picked up about 47 tons of debris in the neighborhoods, and so that's considerable. We never say we missed a bullet because some of our residents didn't, but at the same time, it could have been a lot worse throughout the city as well as far as that debris goes. And so FEMA is in the area. They're still in the area. They have a 1-800 number. Those who are eligible for relief or aid have already registered. And those who haven't, we have all that information on our website as well for them to contact either through the county or through the federal government itself. And so, and we're still doing the ROC calls, Regional Operations Center calls in the afternoon about the aftermath storm. We have our fire departments on that call. The rest of staff has assumed normal operations. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. City Attorney update.
There's no update.
Commission comments. Anyone here want to have anything
That
to
would
say?
be me. That would be me. Thank you, Vice Mayor. And just everybody got an email that I sent to you regarding PSTA. PSTA is going through their budget process, just like we are. And I've mentioned the concern about it's a tight budget year for PSTA, and as a result, they were considering cutting some routes. And one of those routes was the Dunedin route. Certainly, I'm protective of protecting the Dunedin routes, but I'm on a public transit board. I'm concerned anytime you've got to cut any route and the focus not being on increasing ridership. But that route is one of the lowest performing routes. And so it does look like we are going to lose it. They're doing their best not just to cut the route, but use other routes that might help supplement it to reduce the pain. I'm still trying to figure out what those numbers are and exactly what stops there are. What was passed, we've had our first reading on the budget, and what was passed, though, and what I want to discuss with you all today, is that the budget was passed pending a review of all the rides that are considered free rides provided by PSTA. And some of those rides are Election Day. This Friday is Car Free Day. And so PSTA provides free rides to try and convert people over to public transit and leaving their cars at home. But also what was brought up was spring training in Dunedin. And what the motion was is the free rides that Dunedin has through Jolly Trolley with the assistance of parking. Right, we have people that there's limited parking around the stadium, and so people attending those games park at the gateway, and the Jolly Trolley takes them from the gateway lot to the stadium. And so the idea, the concern was Dunedin isn't paying for that, and that is revenue lost for PSTA or Jolly Trolley. And so since we're trying to raise money, that's why that issue came up. In the letter that I received, and I received that late last night from PSTA, so I apologize for throwing it at you early this morning. But the cost, spring training in Dunedin is 3 weeks. And that sounds like a lot, but they're not all home games, and they're not all every day. And so you can take three weeks, and what that whittles down to, at least last season, was 14 games. And they're not all day games, so it's just a few hours for each one of those 14 games. The cost of that is approximately $1,800 in total. The revenue lost is approximately $2,500. And so whether or not, we currently have an agreement with PSTA for Jolly Trolley service in Dunedin, in general, at the cost of $56,000 a year. That's what our agreement is. And so it's a matter of, and there's nothing in our current agreement that really draws out separately, this is what we're paying for spring training. So that's vague. And the concern for me is that, one, it's been motioned in a public meeting that Dunedin gives free rides, or PSTA gives free rides to Dunedin. I don't know that that's actually true. Right, so I'm still trying to figure that out. I haven't had the opportunity to get my hands on the agreement to actually read that myself. But we certainly have professional staff and in both Dunedin and at PSTA. And so I just want to at least let you guys, I don't know what we can do with this information. The concern, I guess, would be is if it comes to, does Dunedin or the Blue Jays, does somebody, even the riders, start paying for those trips? Clearwater doesn't do free park and rides for their spring training, but that's because they have a vast amount of parking for their spring training. But what Clearwater does do is Clearwater does pay for spring break, and you can park in Clearwater, and it takes them over the bridge. And so I'm trying to see what that formula is for Clearwater and Jolly Trolley, and what that formula might look like in Dunedin. But the challenge that we have is that that's out there, and we will not have another Dunedin meeting before the second vote for the budget. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. And Jennifer's aware of it, Brad is aware of it, Bob Ironsmith is aware of it, and we're trying to figure out what we can do, work with the Blue Jays, who wants to pay that if that's a concern and somebody needs to come up with the money. It's only $2,500. Yes, ma'am.
Is this the back and forth from the parking area at Gateway?
Right.
And I mean, is that something our looper will cover as part of our pilot, or?
It certainly could. I don't think the Looper will provide the number of seats that we need to get
Yeah,
those
that's
folks to
true.
the stadium.
That's true, 'cause it's going to be like a six-seater, right?
Yeah.
When is the vote?
The 21st.
Sounds familiar.
You mentioned that the estimated cost of that's $2,500?
The estimated loss of revenue is $2,500.
Okay.
The cost is $1,800.
Cost us is $1,800.
Well, it's what it costs Jolly Trolley, $1,800. But if we're talking about paid seats, it's $2,500.
That's the $2,400 revenue loss.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
How do we feel about that? What, city manager, how should we go forward with that? I can just give you a little bit from me. When I served on PSTA, I'm sorry to say this, but I think that was sort of given to us. We asked for it and was sort of given to us. I wrote it for the first couple times. I wrote it with the staff from PSTA and myself. It was readily used. I don't know to the degree it's currently being used. I assume it's used. And I see a lot of people walking down there, and we do know we have a parking issue down there. So there's probably some expectations on their side, and if we don't do this now, if we don't do this now and they vote against it, could we hire it later?
I think that Commissioner Gao is going to fight the good fight as far as this goes. I know that Brad Miller feels that this service is part of the $56,000 that we pay. I think that the route should stay in place. It's crucial. It really is, to get folks from Gateway to the stadium and back again. And it's not certainly an insurmountable amount, and we can work out how we make sure that continues, no matter what happens at PSTA.
I agree. I think it was given to us in concert with our relationship that we, not, I don't mean given to us, it was given to us as part of our package.
Right.
And so now if they take that away from us, well, that's a whole thing. But if we had to hire it, we could hire it later done, couldn't we, if we wanted it?
We certainly
If we had
could.
to.
Yes,
If they took it away, we could hire it done.
Right.
yes.
So I guess we wait and see.
Yeah, now our agreement does call for 380 extra annual contingency hours within our contract. And I think that's what Brad might be talking about. We've got a contingency money in the agreement.
Yes.
If that's where that money goes towards.
So
Right,
that's,
so what, yeah, then what are they talking about?
Well,
That doesn't even make
it's
sense.
being pushed by some board members.
Right, but if it's actually part of a contingency, yeah.
Right.
I got you.
The way it's perceived versus
Got it.
the way it's perceived.
got it.
Well, I think you're going to do well for us. I feel really positive about it.
He
I've been a
is.
pain in their tail
Oh, he is.
lately anyway,
I have
so,
no doubt, yeah.
which might have brought this on, so.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do you have anything else? That you
No, I just really wanted to make you guys aware of it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And anytime Dunedin was
I'll go
threatened.
all the way around.
So this week actually denotes a significant transition in the Dunedin Fine Arts Center. The new CEO has reported aboard, Andrea Knowles, and she is on our calendar for October 2nd for a meet and greet here at City Hall. I've had the opportunity to meet her, and I will say that we are in good hands. Obviously, with any transition, and I know we'll be recognizing Georgianne, I think, on Thursday. Yeah, she's going to be retiring. Her retirement celebration will be on Friday. I think we are all invited to that. I know we're all invited to it, and just hope to see you all there. And anyway, it's an exciting time.
Thank you, Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, I'm a
Ms.
couple things. Glad Bruce Worth is back on the job. You know, I know contractually, but he was out walking the brick street yesterday and being very picky, I'm happy to say. So, and as he should, it's an expensive project. But anyway, so it was just really good to see him back. Couple things. I'm going to say this because the mayor's not here, and I think it should be said. She sent out an email to us about the Dunedin Historical Museum in their annual meeting on October 17th, and hoping we'd all be there because they also have the new executive director. I know just prior to that date, they've asked me to do strategic planning for them, so I'll be doing that, but super looking forward to the new director. I haven't met her yet. I don't know if anybody's met the director there yet. But anyway, obviously, October 17th gives us a great opportunity for that. And something else, but I'm forgetting what it is, so that's good for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Franny. Well,
John, I've got a
Yes,
correction on
please.
mine. I'm
Yes.
sorry. I mentioned an incorrect date for the PSTA budget meeting, and that's actually the 27th, not, so, just for public record. Come on out, it'll be fun.
not a familiar date.
Yeah, doesn't sound like fun.
All right. Does anybody else from the commission? Yes.
Not from the commission, but
City manager.
actually I have some good news. Nan Bennett just sent me a text message. Your question regarding the interest rate for the SRF loan for the SCADA system, the first 15 million is 0%, and the remainder, the 7.6 is 0.4%.
Do you think we can get better rate from
I
someplace else?
don't think so.
That's amazing.
So we can stop looking now?
Fantastic.
Rob, you and I can stop looking for a better rate for them.
Nothing better than other people's money.
That's right. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I don't even want to know how they got that. That's just amazing.
Okay, from the commission's perspective, is there anything else for the good of the order?
I'm good.
We're going to adjourn the meeting. This meeting is adjourned.